In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, 'Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage.' When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and they paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. There must be something more to this than meets the eye. That's what I would imagine that one young man said to himself as he sat in church one Sunday morning. This young man was a pre-med student, 19 years old. And that Sunday morning, his attention was drawn to a lantern swinging above the altar. He watched it for a while, and then he started timing the swings using his own pulse as a timekeeper. And he observed that no matter how far that lantern swung, whether it was a long swing or merely a little wobble, the time it took to swing back and forth never changed. That discovery changed not only that young man's life, but actually the world that we now live in. His name was Galileo Galilei. And after that experience, he stopped his pre-med studies. He started studying math and physics. According to Stephen Hawking, Galileo bears more responsibility for the birth of modern science than any other person who has ever lived. And that's because among his discoveries, the many discoveries, Galileo's discoveries changed the way people kept time. You see, the clocks that had been created up until that time would gain or lose as much as 15 minutes a day. But in the decades after that discovery, clocks worked with pendulums and only gained or lost 10 seconds a day. It revolutionized the world. Without a doubt, hundreds, if not thousands of people had sat in that very same church on Sunday morning and saw that lamp swinging and never had thought a single thing about it. But when Galileo saw it, he saw something more. He saw a clue, a sign, something that said there is more at work in that swinging than just a little wobble here or there. He saw an invitation that called him to delve deep into the mysteries of the universe, and he actually answered that call and set out on a quest to discover those mysteries. Much like Galileo, I would imagine the wise men, the magi in our gospel lesson, might have been thinking the very same thing when they saw that star rise in the night sky. And they knew there must be something more to this simple new light in the sky than it's something more to it than just a simple new light. That it had significance, it had meaning, and they set out on a quest to discover the meaning, to verify what they long suspected, that a newborn king of the Jews had arrived, and his birth was signaled in those stars. Most scholars believe that these wise men that we hear about in our gospel lesson aren't actually the kings that we actually think about when we think about Christmas pageants and nativity scenes. They're magi, they're astrologers, people that watched and studied and interpreted dreams in the night sky and the appearance and the movements of stars because they believed that those movements held cosmic significance. These men were spiritual seekers. They knew the world had changed with the rising of that star, and they wanted to see it, to verify it, to understand it, and to praise it. So much so that they were willing to spend weeks, if not months, traveling, following that star to the place where it came to rest. They were willing to leave their homes, their country, everything that was familiar to them, in order to see what they believed was the light and truth entering into the world. You know, in his Sermon on the Mount, Matthew reports Jesus as saying this. He says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you." And this, the most famous of Jesus' sermons, it's important for us to realize that Jesus wasn't just preaching to his disciples. He was preaching to a whole hillside of people, preaching to Gentiles and Jews, preaching to prostitutes and tax collectors, fishermen and farmers. There was no litmus test for entry to become a seeker. There was no inside track on seeking. Jesus offered this same promise to everyone who is gathered. Seek and you will find. And perhaps it's absolutely no coincidence at all that the very first people who seem to have a sense of the cosmic importance of Jesus' birth are the ones who are actually looking for it, that are watching the signs, that are eagerly anticipating this radical good news entering the world, and the ones who actually actively went out to find it. This story about spiritually seeking astronomers is the story that ushers in the season of Epiphany. This liturgical season between Christmas and Lent that is all about discovery. Epiphany is all about those little aha moments when we wake up and see glimpses of Christ's light entering our lives, glimpses of the glory of God entering into our lives, moments when we discover something new about who Jesus was and is, about how he is active in our lives. And each Epiphany, we are invited into this season to become something like Galileo and like these magi, to remember, no matter who we are, we're called to be seekers. It makes no difference whether you're brand new in a relationship with God or if you've been a disciple your entire life. Every one of us has something new to discover, to learn about God. But in order for aha moments to really begin to illumine those dark, dismal places in our lives, and to allow the hope of the gospel to give us the gift of new life, authentic seeking takes a real leap of faith. Like the Magi, we have to be willing to leave our favorite comfort zone and venture out, not knowing exactly where that seeking is going to take us. When I think of moments like these, I'm reminded of a memorable scene from the movie The Matrix. Remember that? Neo, the hero in the story, is faced with a decision about whether he really, really wants to know the truth about the world that he's been living in, or go on in his normal everyday life. And Morpheus, his sort of spiritual guide on this journey, offers him an opportunity to see the truth of the world. He tells Neo, this is your last chance. After this, there's no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed, you believe whatever you want to believe. He says, take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland, and I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. We have moments much like this in our own lives when we have this utter sense that God has broken into our worlds and God is at work in our lives, that God is not some far off away deity, but close and personal and an active part of our lives. Maybe it's something in a sermon that you hear, right? That you say, oh, I swear that was meant just for me. Or maybe it's that coincidence that just seems a wee bit too lucky. Maybe it's the unexpected gift of grace, the gift of forgiveness and love we never expected, or the perfectly timed opportunity to do something we know we're being called to do. When we face these situations, these opportunities in our life where we get a glimpse of God, we're faced with a choice like Neo's. We're faced with this choice to take the blue pill or the red pill, to stay in our comfort zone or to venture out on this journey that God wants to lead us on. We can dismiss the events that happen as pure happen chance and stay in our comfort zones, or take a leap of faith. Head out like the Magi on this journey where we don't know where God's going to take us. Someone once asked my parents if they were surprised I had become a pastor, and I'll never forget my father's response. He said, no. What truly shocked us is when she joined a church in the first place. That was my blue pill, red pill moment, man. Or at least the first one, anyway. Like Neo, I had seen glimpses of a world that I never before thought really existed. Coincidences that seemed to be like breadcrumbs leading me down a road that would take me to God in the church. But eventually, I was faced with a blue pill, red pill moment, and I had to make a decision. Was I going to stay with the blue pill, take the blue pill, stay in my comfortable world, the world I knew, the world I understood, the world that had served me pretty well up until that point in my life, or was I going to take the other one, the red pill, and journey down a road where I didn't know where it was going to go? And man, did it go. But you know, I knew for certain that all those little aha moments that had led me to that point were hope-filled, were life-filled, were gifts of grace, were opportunities for my life to take a new and more fulfilled turn. And so I knew I had to take a leap of faith, because I was never going to understand Christianity standing on the outside. I had to take a leap of faith and leave my comfortable world and see how far that rabbit hole actually went. There's lots of those moments in our lives. That's the first notable one I can remember in my life, but there are lots of those moments all along the way where we are asked to take a leap of faith, venture out in places that we felt comfortable and at ease, and follow where God is asking us to go, to seek God. It's a new year. It's the time of year when a lot of us usually make New Year's resolutions, right? Things like, oh, this year I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to exercise more, or I'm going to read, or I'm going to spend more time with my family. We make all these resolutions. But it's also the season of Epiphany when this is going on, the season of life where we're called to pay attention to the glimpses of God's light that are always flashing in our lives. To see this season as God's invitation to take the next leap of faith. To see those flashing flashes of light as aha moments that lead us in a different direction. And the question is, are we willing to see how deep the rabbit hole goes? Are we willing to be challenged? Are we willing to leave our comfort zones? Would you be willing to attend an adult faith formation that at hearing the title makes you pretty nervous? Would you be willing to serve in some capacity that you're pretty sure you're not fully equipped to serve in? Would you be willing to go someplace that normally makes you really afraid to go? Jesus promises that if we seek God, we will find God. And the Magi remind us that when we do find God, there will be joy in that moment. But their story also reminds us that this journey takes us to places that we don't naturally always want to go. To places where God tries to work on us, to challenge our current perspectives, to change our habits, to give our lives new and more life-giving priorities. We're called to be seekers. And throughout history, people's lives have been changed when they've answered that call to be seekers. I mean, think about it. When Peter went seeking Jesus, he leapt out of a perfectly good boat to try and walk on water. When somebody like Mother Teresa seeked Jesus, it led her to serve people that the world thought were just absolutely worthless. And seeking God has led countless unnamed Christians throughout time to sit with the sick and the dying, to feed the hungry and the homeless, to reach out with words of encouragement to those who are depressed and lonely and isolated, and to be voices, advocates for people who the world has silenced. And in each of those places, I guarantee, those seekers found God. So I urge us all this Epiphany to be a little bit like these Magi, to go on a journey, to seek out the living God, to follow the light of Christ where it leads us, each of us individually, personally, to not be afraid to leave the perspectives that we have always held true and near, and to see what God has to teach us. Seek and you will find. You'll find places of new life and hope and the gift of God's grace. Seek and you will find the good news of the gospel. Thanks be to God.